Where you go?
Yep. We're out. Go.
Welcome to segment 6. We're going to talk about the Charleston, South Carolina church shooting. One of the things that sticks out in my mind about this is the cold-bloodedness of it. He actually went into the church and asked to sit in a Bible study. They didn't know him from Adam. They welcomed him. He sat there for an hour, related to them for an hour.
That's really bizarre.
Evil.
Really, really bizarre.
This is evil.
And then he just stands up and says that he'd come to shoot black people and just kills them all, except a woman.
Yeah.
What is it? It was
A woman and a child, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, the child played dead. The child pretended that she was already dead. And then he told the woman specifically, I'm going to let you live so that you can tell
tell the story.
people what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Dillard Storm Roof. That's quite a moniker to go through grammar school with, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure he didn't use all 3 names.
Probably not.
They only do that when they start shooting people.
Yeah. 21 years old, though. And he had a jacket with patches, white supremacy patches. Patches from Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, and from apartheid South Africa. The original patches from when those existed, which is, kind of a weird role model, I think. The other significant thing is it was the church itself was the oldest black congregation in the state of South Carolina. Went back to like pre-Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like a revered church.
Kind of a famous church.
Yeah.
And he says in his manifesto on his website, I chose Charleston because it is the most historic city in my state, and at one time had the highest ratio of blacks to whites in the country. So he chose a historic city and historic church.
It's pretty well thought out.
Yeah, it seems like more well thought out than some of these whack jobs.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, a guy named Dan Roberts did an article. It's called "Every Mass Shooting Shares One Thing in Common, and it's not weapons."
Was it drugs?
It was drugs, yeah. And he cites in his article all of the people who have done this sort of thing and were on drugs. Jeff Weiss, age 16, been prescribed 60 milligrams of Prozac, 3 times the average starting dose for adults. He shot his grandfather's girlfriend, fellow students at Red Lake, Minnesota, and shot himself. 10 dead, 12 wounded. So he's got this long list. 44 mass murderers. 44 mass murderers are linked to being on drugs. Prescription drugs.
Yes.
Like Prozac, that sort of thing. Which I think you had an interesting comment about how well you can trust that.
Well, right. I think that these drugs really haven't been around that long. And, the FDA and the medical community, and of course the drug companies, they say, oh, these drugs are completely safe, and they're prescribed to young teenagers, as young as 13, I believe. And, with very little reservation, even though they know that it can cause suicidal thoughts, paranoia, irrational behavior,
It's a long list.
and even violent behavior in some cases. So I think it's very disturbing that it's just so rubber stamped in the medical community that this is just okay.
There's been an overarching philosophy in the school system for a long time now. If a kid gives you trouble, dose him.
Put them on right on.
Yeah. Discipline doesn't exist anymore. I always joke about it, but the nuns would like whack on you or whatever it was. And if you were stupid enough to go home and say to your parents that a nun had, thumped you, you got it worse at home because they wanted to know why the nun did that. Today, they sue the nun, So the answer to students who cause trouble, they don't discipline them, they just drug them.
I can't find, it seemed like the drug that they said that this young man was actually, it was like a drug they used to bring people off of heroin and stuff. It was one of those detoxing, I can't remember.
I did read that, you're right.
I can't remember what the name of it was. It was one that I hadn't heard of before. So semi-prescription, but maybe obtained illegally, or
Yeah,
surreptitiously.
the FBI said he was not on the radar. Local law enforcement said he'd had a trespassing charge and a few minor drug-related charges, probably possession type stuff, but he wasn't considered.
Right, not like your Jared Goff or some of these people that were on the radar and, the law enforcement community basically ignored what they were told.
And it's tough, it's a tough thing for cops because where do you draw the line?
Well, it absolutely is, and a lot of people don't understand. It's called law enforcement. So you really have to wait. I mean, police officers generally, for the most part, have to wait until they have evidence that you've broken the law. And they can't do things preventively, other than surveillance and waiting for that person to make a move or trying, like in the case of like a fake drug buy or something like that, or fake arms buy or explosive materials and things like that. They've done that. They've set up people who were suspected, and then once they they say they want to do that, then they can swoop in and arrest them. But that's really what the police are facing. And I think in some of these cases they have dropped the ball on some of them as far as people they should have surveilled or people they should have set up for those type of sting operations. But this is not one of those. I haven't heard anything about law enforcement and having this guy on their radar.
There didn't seem to be any interaction between them.
No.
And it's not like this was a spontaneous thing. He left behind a manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went into detail.
Right.
Yeah, sounds like it's pretty well. He had like sections on different races that he hated.
He had commentary about blacks, about Asians. I mean,
Hispanics,
yeah.
Jews.
Hispanics weren't so bad. He'd kill them, but they weren't so bad.
There's some
Yeah.
good ones and some bad ones because some of them are white.
Exactly. I mean, the thought process, this guy, no one picked up on this. It's astounding.
Pretty well developed, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, his friends, sorry,
No, go ahead.
his friend did, a couple of his friends I saw quoted on the news this morning or the other day said that, oh yeah, he used to talk about stuff like that, but we were all drinking and we didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
We just thought it was the alcohol talking.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is where along the line does this switch flip? Because you're not born hating a specific gender, race, or anything of that matter.
It's usually learned at home.
It's taught along the lines, and it's
Sure.
it's nothing that you can prevent, really. It's just I would be curious to find out where the initial spark was, and then you can learn from the experience. But
If a baby comes out of the womb essentially neutral.
Mhm.
In fact, the truth is they come out of the womb magnets for attention.
They're a sponge,
Right,
yeah.
they're a sponge. They have no conscious of anything going on around other than what they want. And as
And
they
on the
grow,
on the other hand, there is DNA. I mean, there's things that were coded in our DNA, like a propensity for addiction, for example.
Oh, sure. But what I'm saying is that most stuff that an adult behavior, most behavior that an adult displays is learned behavior.
Right.
Most of it is learned behavior. And typically early learning, your parents or whoever it was that raised you. And then when you get out in the neighborhood, you look at, no kid is born a gangbanger.
Yeah.
But they live in that environment and they go to school and they have to survive and, they morph into it. That's the reality of it. And when we were talking about the housing thing earlier, during the show, I do get the reality that if you could extract people from a violent environment and give them housing, reasonable housing somewhere out of that environment, that's going to be better particularly for the kids because they're in a learning growth mode. But the answer is not to put them in a position where the people around them are going to be at odds with them. Because let's face it, if you move somebody in who is living on welfare next to a $25 million house, that's probably not going to go over well.
Yeah, the haves and have-nots.
Right. that may not be politically correct to say, but it's the truth.
I was going to say as soon as we were on the air, but it's people who move into those neighborhoods are under the presumption that you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
And when you move in there, you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people who are essentially going to form communities like Barrington, Hinsdale, Naperville for that matter. But going back to the drug thing for a sec, there's a comedian / fighter. It's an odd correlation, but his name's Joe Rogan. He's a little indifferent, but he made a good quote. This isn't a verbatim quote, but I remember the section. He said, "This country has a mental health problem disguised as a gun problem." And this list is exactly what that is.
That's exactly right. You're right.
And for some odd reason, I mean, there's become increasing awareness for mental health. I mean, you can take Brandon Marshall, for example. He wore green shoes during Mental Awareness Week in October, which is supposed to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I believe.
It is.
He got fined like $15,000, but he matched that and donated it to a mental health fund. But it's just, it's a touchy topic that people are not willing to discuss, and that's something that needs to be changed and brought out into the open, per se, because I think, like you said, I mean, these drugs haven't been around for all that long. I mean, I'm not opposed to treating things, doing what you need to do. I would say that there's more success stories than failures in terms of this, but the failures are massive, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Well, and here's the problem. You're right. But the problem is it doesn't fit the agenda of whoever it is that's trying to disarm the people in this country. And, you know, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not really out to get me. We always say that, but it's very, very clear that there is, and it's open, it's not a hidden thing, that there is a strong move to try and disarm the population, period. George Soros just dumped in $30 million, I think it was, to intentionally foment race riots in Ferguson and Baltimore. That's public. It's out. Yeah. It's public. They're intentionally trying to create trouble so that they can. I don't know that martial law is really going to be the end result, but because I don't think the Congress would put up for it, I don't think people would put up for it. But certainly to enact stronger gun control. They sold guns illegally.
More government control of that.
More gun. Period. Right.
But you know what you were saying about mental health, I think that's really prescient because we talked. I think it was just last week we were talking about the VA. If you go,
Nice.
you know, if the veterans go and seek help from the VA to either talk to somebody about their mental health issues or even get drugs or actual treatment, then they get their gun rights taken away.
They turn right over to the.
And I think they're right. They're starting there. They're starting with the VA, and then the next thing is Medicare and Medicaid,
Sure.
and then go on from there to the general population. Curing mental illness or addressing mental illness again doesn't fit with the agenda of disarming the population. They would much rather just disarm us.
Yeah, more crazy people, less guns.
Yeah.
When I applied to VA, because I thought maybe I had a disability claim, I didn't have a strong feeling about it, but I thought I might have one. They said, you can get an advocate to help you if this is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I thought, oh no, I'm not, because that's exactly the earmark of saying, well, he applied for aid because he didn't feel he could handle the pressure. Yeah, exactly. This is insidious stuff. Now, the response to all this, what's the first thing they say? The president can't get out of his mouth how bad he feels about this without getting gun control stuck in.
Sure.
You look at this. Obama blames guns for South Carolina shooting. In the wake of crime, politicians stick to their scripts. They're all saying the same thing. The mayor of the town of South Carolina, he says, got to have more gun control. Hillary or Adam Clinton, got to have more gun control. Okay, Salon magazine. All right, yeah, exactly. White America must answer for the Charleston Church massacre. Like, did anybody call you and suggest they should do this? Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing. Our president of the United States, blames guns. Okay, and he makes the comment. You know what? I didn't highlight it, but he makes the comment.
That's right here. The president blamed the accessibility of guns for the shooting. He says, we don't have all the facts, but we do know once again innocent people were killed in part because someone who wanted to inflict harm had no trouble getting their hands on a gun. And then he goes on to say, this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
It took me 15 seconds to come up with a list of 8 countries that have exactly this kind of, and this is not third world. You're talking about Australia, well, Azerbaijan is, Australia, Azerbaijan, Canada, England, Finland, Germany, Norway, and Scotland have all had these
And
kinds
they
of
actually
violence.
did a book I made you read with South Africa, which is
What
not-
about South Africa?
And they
That's
have a lot of interracial terrorism in South
That's
Africa.
right. And so, once again, this president is lying to forward an agenda. He's just lying. And he goes on the assumption that no one will catch him at it. Or maybe not. Maybe he goes on the assumption that he's a president, and so what?
Well, I think he is. I think he goes, well, you know what, I have this press room, I have this podium, I have this microphone.
And I have the press.
And I have all these people waiting for me to say something, so I'm just gonna say whatever the hell I want to. I'm just gonna float that balloon and just take my chance. I don't care.
And if you know, that's a good point, because if he converts 20 people, that's 20 people that he didn't have.
It's kind of like when a defense attorney or a prosecutor will say something in a courtroom that they know that they're going to get an objection, but now they've said it
But
and
it's
it's
out.
out there and the jury's already heard it and there's nothing that the
Strike
judge
that
can
from the
do.
record.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
That's good.
yeah, they can cross it
Yeah.
off, but the jury already heard it. Too late. Ha ha. I
I've
mean,
said this to one of my buddies a bunch of times, but guns are second to freedom of speech in the Bill of Rights. It's been that way since the founding of this country. If they weren't meant to be a fundamental part of our country, they wouldn't have been second to freedom of speech. I mean, I understand the advancements of weapons have been just absolutely substantial. No, I don't think civilians should be able to go out and get an RPG and just chill in their backyard with it. I mean, maybe.
why
but,
not? I mean, you're just chilling.
You know, but here's the interesting thing. If you're a law-abiding citizen, if you give me a tactical thermonuclear weapon, I'm not going to do anything illegal with it. I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
I mean, and people go, it's like this, oh, well, we don't talk about automatic weapons because that's not right. Why? If you're a law-abiding citizen, why is that? What difference does it make? To quote our Secretary of State, what difference does it make? If you're a law-abiding citizen, then fine. And yet, of all of the amendments to the Constitution, only one varies from town to town, and it's the Second Amendment. And that makes no sense at all.
You know, speaking of the technology, what sounds kind of funny is people always say, "Oh, back then they had muskets and this and that," you know. And there was actual technology that
They had
similar
automatic
to-
weapons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
similar to a Gatling gun.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it.
People don't realize that.
Right.
Yeah, they did in fact have it. So when they say, well, founding fathers could have never envisioned it, of course they couldn't.
Yeah.
They existed at the time. But your normal home didn't have one because they were very, very rare. But they were in existence, and those weren't stupid men. They knew technology would advance.
Right.
The bottom
That's
line
what
is
it
simple. This is an agenda. That's what it is. It's an agenda. And they relentlessly are going after it.
The thing that kind of bothers me is people think that I have ARs and AKs at my house. I mean, every time I pull them out, my friends, is that automatic?
Remember that list? Now you're on.
Yeah,
you're on
I was
30.
on it when I bought the AK. I know, but people don't understand the magnitude of which you have to go to get an automatic weapon, unless you know somebody on the street.
Right.
But you need.
Or you know how to convert it yourself.
Yeah, even which some guns are not actually capable of handling it. You need a
Exactly.
barrel that's specified for that. Long story short, but if memory serves correct, you need a Class 3 weapons license to even apply to get a fully automatic weapon. And on top of that, they're like $15,000 to $20,000 per rifle.
That's true. In our state, you have to be an actual dealer of
Yeah,
Class 3 firearms, but other states you don't have to.
Yeah,
Regular citizen can.
Well,
depends what state.
in our state, I couldn't own. If I were in Indiana, I could get a federal license to own one.
Right.
Illinois won't recognize a pheasant.
There's people that
If you're
manufacture.
an FFL,
Right, FFL,
Right,
that's
yeah.
what I'm talking about, license as far as an FFL like a business.
right?
Yeah, a person would be in a different state to do it.
Yeah.
Depending on what state it is.
So bottom line, hey, you got anything else? I think bottom line is nobody likes to see this sort of thing happen. But there's nothing in gun control that would prevent this sort of thing. None of these things are preventable by gun control because they don't care about laws.
If someone is hell-bent to kill people, they will find a way to kill people.
Right.
Just a few months ago, there was a knife attack.
In
Somebody,
Japan, or
yeah,
China, one of them.
so they killed like, you know, over 10 people with a knife. So it has nothing to do with the guns. You know, I actually have the bumper sticker in my car. It says guns don't kill people, people kill people. And that's really the essence of it.
Right. You can use anything, you know, burn the church down, people in it,
Right,
you know,
you
drive
know,
your car into somebody.
Well, we've been killing people since the beginning of
If you know what
mankind.
you're doing, you can kill people with your bare hands.
Right. So it's nonsense. It's all nonsense. Well, I think that's it. Okay, we're good for that. We appreciate you having watched us, and we'll be back next week with more segment 6.